I've seen it from all sides, from being a player and then suddenly to being a player, from going into coaching for like 12 years as well. So I had that, and then obviously I've been out the game for 3 years,
Yeah.
and then just seeing how some business people look at their status and then how they actually try and help others. Whereas even me coming out at an older age and then suddenly going into the business world, people, oh, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. You're like, well, that's everything against that I've ever had, because
Yeah.
if you're a young player, you learn from the older ones and you try and develop. And then when you become a senior player, you share the things that are valuable and that are needed, but you let them grow, but you give them the tools to grow. Then when you go into, the coaching world, it's all about sharing. It's all about dealing with different people's emotions, because when you play, you tend to just focus on my emotion, and I'm aware of others, but if I can control mine, then that's easy enough. But when you're coaching, which is a lot harder, playing was easy, but when you come out of play, when you're coaching, it is the difficult side, the emotions that go on at home, that go on through contracts, that go on through performance. So you suddenly got three different emotions that come out in every single week that you didn't know about some of them, because I don't know about his personal life. I don't know about his inner thoughts, how he really deals with failure, or he's got drunk and been embarrassed or whatever. You suddenly see it differently. And then the business stuff. So the business stuff's been even more interesting for me, because I've been hung out a little bit on a couple of occasions, which
Right.
is it's never what I've been used to. So it's been a bit odd for me, but things have changed over the last few months, which is a nice way, hopefully for the better.
Good, 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 good. Oh, let me pick your brains a little bit, can I? Because I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
So, what is it? So, take me back to when you were when you were in Scotland, and when you were coaching Gloucester, and you were coaching Sale, and you were playing. What did performance mean? Like, how as a coach and a player did you define performance?
Well, I think if you're looking at a player's point of view, you obviously from an individual point, and it's a strange thing, it probably goes back to when I was even younger, when I was probably around 15, 16, when some people said to me, "Oh, you wouldn't play. You'll not play for Scotland because you're not big enough." And I was like, "Right, okay, I get that." And some of the times I actually understood that quite well, because I wasn't physically big enough to dominate certain things in the game. So I started to obviously hone my own skills, so my passing and my kicking and my rugby knowledge. So there's things that I could do, I could control. Whereas, the size of someone I couldn't control, I couldn't suddenly become 6 foot, and I was never going to. So I was like, oh well, just accept that. I would never be the type of player that would. It was about me scoring tries or me doing this. I was never that kind of person. So I understood then that performance for me was who I was playing with, what kind of players it was, how we wanted to play the game. Did that suit me virtually? And if I had my core skills good, then I was going to benefit others, because if my pass was good, the 10 was going to have a little bit more time. Same for just understanding the big men. So if I was passing to a big fella, then I understood that he may not catch it the same as the back. So I was always focused on the team. I was always about the team for me, because if I was in a team that knew how to play quickly, and if I wanted to give to higher tempo, and then that was me. That was me. So I was like perfect. Then everybody else had to be a little bit fitter. Everyone else had to be a little bit sharper. So it was like, think like that. Then I'll make you. You just turn up in the same positions as much as possible. Then I'll leave the decision on me to pass it to you, or the guy across in front of you, or behind you. Then I'll try and read that by getting there as quickly as possible, so the defence can't understand me if I can understand them. So that was the playing side, that I felt that performance for me was about my performance, but ultimately the team's performance would be helped by me, because if I could make the game quickly or relax the situation a little bit sometimes by slowing the game down. So it wasn't always about speeding it up. And you look at the conditions sometimes when it's wet, and in the UK especially, you have to play a game that sometimes not having the ball isn't, really the best thing. It's about giving the ball away and kicking and chasing and
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. So the weather comes into the UK stuff a lot more. Um, Coaching was a different animal, really, just because you had to Gloucester, I went in, had retired 2005. I went in I had a back surgery, which made me retire early. And then I was going to work for Sky TV doing punditry, and then the opportunity came up. Dean Ryan said, "Look, come on," because I got man of the match against Gloucester twice that year on both occasions, and he was going, "There's something about you that gets you that you can cope with this. Even at my age at that time, I was 33 then, and then even then you can cope with that." And I was like, "Oh yeah." He said, "Well, I want you to come and coach, and I've got a new opportunity. Why don't you come down and coach with me?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm only just getting surgery on Monday, and then I'm going to be cracking on," sort of thing. And with the Sky, he's like, "Well, look, give it a go." And going into coaching there, when I'd played against him 3 months prior to that, Phil Vickery's, Henry Pauls, and these boys, Simpson Daniel, Tyndall, I was like, "Oh, geez." But I just stuck to what I had. We at Sale had kind of grew a good, really tempo in the game, and our framework was very good in our structure. So I just didn't want to imply that, because Gloucester had renowned a big pack of forwards, but didn't necessarily have a game plan that fit, that fitted in the modern way. So I just took my training stuff that we'd done virtually at Sale and used that, and then my own mindset with the backs, and it went really well. We had a great time, and eventually came director of rugby there for 3 years. So that was good. And then Sale came back to Sale, and that was a difficult challenge for me, because we came back and we lost the first 7 games in the league. I went through some difficulties with the board and co-owners and stuff, but eventually we all got around the room and agreed, and there's a few changes to be made. They were made, and then we won 7 out of the last 11 games to stay up, and that showed huge character from us. And the performance there was, we simplified everything. We were very clear. There was no player that was on his own agenda, and we got rid of some players that were. And we just decided this is how we're going to play. If no one agrees if we all agree to it, then we'll just have to dig in. We'll get some luck. We need luck along the way. We got a game against Exeter, which was a big turning point. We should never have won it, but we kept sticking in, and there was a forward pass or a knock on or something that just allowed us that avenue to stay in the fight, and we managed. And I think managing that group, even then, because I had gone through some difficulty, I think they seen that it was a shared view, because I had gone through it with the owners and with the results, and coming back from Gloucester had been successful and then deemed us not successful. But we survived, and no team had survived in that time, from being bottom at Christmas to staying up in the June time. So that was, for me, was a massive sort of realization of performance and focus, and everyone on page, no matter how talented you were or are. So I felt that was a big thing. And then Leeds was my other one, where I was going in with Ian McGeechan, and that was just to help him out, really. And that was a different challenge, because we were in the Championship and we were competing on a £2 million budget with against a £4 million budget. And that was, we were, second highest, best payers in that league. Of course we were, but we were probably 60% behind London Irish or Worcester. But we lost in the playoff final 54-47 over a 2-legged game. So we were up there, we just didn't have the quality. So for me, the big parts in the performance stuff, Zoe, would be focusing on your strengths, getting them right, and then being part of a game where your strengths are allowed to shine. Because everybody employs someone or signs a player of his good qualities. But then if you don't have a game plan that matches that quality of the person, then the person that signed you or employed you is the one that's not thought it through. That's the big part for me. You must think it through physically, emotionally, then if you're looking at rugby, tactically. So you have to have all three. There's no point in me having a game plan that doesn't allow my emotions to come through or my then tactics to come through. And then physically, if I'm not, there's no point in me picking a line-out game if I've got everybody at 6 foot. There's no point in me picking a scrummaging team if we're all under 15 stone. There's no point in me picking a high-tempo game if we're all 20 stone. So the people that designs that team must design it with a mixture of different people. It doesn't matter what it says on the CV. It matters what it's the character that's in there as well. So if you've got someone that's very intelligent but doesn't necessarily mix very well, then he's going to come up against some barriers when you put him with another colleague that is less intelligent or academic background, but very jovial, very happy-ish, and thrives off energy and excitement and different things. So you must be aware of that performance thought process has to come back to you as the director of rugby, you as the CEO or the MD must understand that if you employ something, you upskill them at what they're good at. Not always upskill them at the bad things and forget about the good things. Focus on their good first. That's what you bought them for. Then look at some of the things that they work on, but they'll probably develop the bad things through learning and listening. Listening's easier than anything. If you can listen and be observative and compassionate about what you're trying to do and admit that you've got weaknesses, then that's not a bad sign. Showing some weakness to someone to say, look, I don't really know what that is. Don't understand it. I'll take 6 months to do it, because changing habits of a lifetime as someone that's 30 or 20, 30, 40, or even 50, well, it's very hard. It gets harder every year, but you don't employ through age all the time. You know, when you're going into business, you employ just because he looks at his CV's great. The company he's been at before, he's had great track record. It's a great track record because he's had great synergy, he's had great friendships. He's built something to get that you employ him expecting to get that in the first quarter or the second quarter or the third quarter or even in that annual year. He hasn't done it. There's something else not right. It's not just him. And that's where I think performance comes back down to picking the right person, picking the MD and the CEO have to be willing to admit their weaknesses without showing that they're soft as shite.
Yes.
In a nice way.
Perfect.
That's
yes.
Only show some bits, don't show all of it, but don't be frightened of showing that you're vulnerable.
Amazing. You've answered my first 5 questions just by talking. That's so awesome, because that's exactly what they don't do. They think they need to know all the answers, and they think that they need to be in control and in charge all the time. There's very little vulnerability at the top table. So perfect.
But I mean, I know it myself. I've been there and I'm thought, nah, I can't say that. I got it wrong. I didn't know what to do at halftime. You know, what to do at halftime in a game when you've got, you know, there's some players you coach that have played more times than me internationally, and I was lucky at 60 caps, but it doesn't always mean that I knew the answer as a captain. I wasn't captain to be the best player. I was someone that could manage the team the best.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't always the best players, you know, whether that was Martin Johnston or you look at Johnny Wilkinson or look at Ollie Phillips or, you know, sometimes Ollie coached Ollie at Gloucester. You see, I coached Ollie for 18 months. And it's really interesting because there was conversations I would have with him about why I'm not playing, and he was getting to the verge of me picking him, and then I think he'd done his hamstring or his shoulder, I can't remember. He got an injury which then ruled him out, and then the team, the Charlie Sharples, the Johnny Mays, Ollie Morgans, these younger lads, sort of Leslie Vinocola came into the mix, and Ollie was like, damn, I've come out of sevens to give 15s a go, and then I'm going to miss this opportunity potentially. So I think you have to understand it from everybody's point of view, and the more upskilling you can do as a boss, then I think the better you'll get from your staff.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you. Oh my goodness. So you mentioned, I'm really interested in failure, because you mentioned that you've had to, you know, first 7 games, lost them all. So you've got these individuals who really want to win. They're really competitive. They're really hungry to win and succeed. How do you manage failure at an individual level, but then at a team level as well?
Yeah, I think you've got to understand what first and foremost, that your preparation going into that contest. So whether if I'm the individual and I've gone into it and I haven't prepared properly, It's an old saying: if you fail to prepare, all you're doing is preparing to fail. So it's a classic example. If I go into a meeting, or if I use a business sense now, if I go into that meeting underprepared, there will be times in that meeting that I am going to fail with the answers or information I'm providing. Now, if I show that during that time, or carry that in with my head, thinking, "Damn, I've actually shown that I have no idea what I'm on about."
Yeah.
Where sometimes you just have to get honest. Well, actually, I don't know the answer to that. I can't solve that right now. But failing is, what's failing? Making a bad pass, or losing a game, or making a bad decision. Well, every decision you need to make, and at the time you think it's the right one. But preparation is probably the biggest part of failure. And in sport, you're different, because a referee can make a decision and make you fail, lose the game.
Yeah.
So that, and you can have human error. You can have just a knock on. You can slip. You can miss a tackle. It's not deemed as that bad. There've been many other things that's happened prior to that instance of you missing something or making a mistake, and you can always come back to them. Generally, the basics of any mistake probably can mirror back to, there was a penalty given somewhere else, or there was a knock on somewhere else, and it's filtered on to a decision coming closer to an area. And in rugby, obviously, you've got the try line, so you're protecting this area of the pitch. If you protect that area of the pitch, you tend to then not really lose points. So it's very simple. When you think of your exits, to talk about your exits, why does everybody kick so much now, and when they're coming out of their half?
Yeah.
That's just for protection. That's for protecting. We conserve energy here, because we're going to have to defend for a long time. So when we defend and we've got more energy, we're likely to make less mistakes.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking that business sense wise, you're going, right, okay, that's the first fundamentals we'll have to have right. So our pitch has to be right to win this deal. So if we get a pitch right, everyone has to know what we're doing. Once they understand what we're all doing, then it's like easy to then take the next stages, which the pitch is right, great, then that's where we go. And then if we get the pitch, then our personality can come through as a company.
Yeah.
We lose the pitch, you never get to the personality stage. So that's massive. And dealing with the bad times, I think I didn't dwell on things too long. I didn't. I kind of put them to bed quite quickly. If I knew it was my fault, I would be willing to stand up in the group and say, "Lads, that's my fault. It's
Yeah.
my mistake." I had no issues singling myself out, as even when I captained, whether it was Scotland or Sale or Melrose or Narbonne when I was in France, or any age levels that I've captained that, or all the inputs in them all. But I had no issues about myself being, yeah, I messed up. It's my fault. Sorry. I'll try not to do it again. I can't say I'll never do it again, because I got a kick charge down, and that might happen again in this world. But some of the other ones, like, I underprepared, I can't use very often.
No.
I can't use that. I've not got that. I've not got the luxury of saying, "Well, I was out having a few beers yesterday, and I've turned up a bit slow this morning." You know what I mean? I've only got one or two of them in my career.
Yes.
Same when you're coaching. I can admit that I've underprepared the team, because I've taken the ball off. We've had 1-5 in a row, and something I should have done a little bit extra, and I've just taken it for granted. And I've taken that decision for granted, and then the team suffered, and the team are getting criticised when I know it's been my fault. So I've got to then say, "Look, lads, I'll take this one in the media. I'll say it's a coach's issue, that it's not a playing one." So when it's a player's one, it's easy to solve sometimes.
Yeah.
Coach's one, it's even harder, because sometimes the assistant coach, that's where the MDs find it difficult, when it's one of their senior assistants hasn't delivered. He's not turned up on time, or because failure comes from loads of different things. It comes from, that whole process of what is failure. Losing isn't failure. Losing a contract isn't failure. Failure is, as I say internally, we've not provided an environment that's enjoyable, challenging, and has targets. You know, it has something there. You
Yeah.
have to have a mindset that gives you, say, well, I thrive off upskilling me, a learning environment, and a happy environment.
Yeah.
If I have them, I then circle myself around what makes me tick. So if I've got an environment that's happy, I can't come into work every day and we're all grumpy. I can't, because we see each other so much. And then I can't come in, and if you're not going to try and teach me anything, Bryan, you're a rubbish coach because you run a strict, grumpy environment. You don't upskill me, and there's no togetherness at all. So yes, I'm junior, right? Okay, well, junior people should be treated than senior people because you have to be the ability to go up and down the ladder, which is very tiring and emotional sometimes when you're looking at going up and down because all you do is exposing yourself all the time. And there's some smart people out there that will, take that on and challenge it and use it and, use different things against it. So the hard part is just accepting that and saying, well, how do I get other people to think like me?
Yes.
That's the challenge. That's only happens when you share a drink together. A drink doesn't mean alcohol. It means it can be a soft drink. It can be a coffee.
Yeah.
It can be. Don't think that always. And that's hard from my background, coming from an amateur, working on the building site,
Yeah.
to then turning professional. But then the early years of professionalism was we all loved to be of them. We were still socialising as much as anything.
Yeah.
Then the professional game comes in and it totally changes.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Totally changes when everybody can't do that. So you can't really get the bottom of somebody that you're sharing a room with someone and he's had a bad day and you don't know what he's like, and a beer can help, and emotionally you can have a chat to him and he opens up a little bit. So when I'm going back to my old border mindset and swearing at someone and shouting at them and trying to get the best at them,
Yeah.
because that's how I thought it was, you get a slap across the head and you kick them on the backside and get on with it and you fight, sort of thing. Whereas the modern day players hasn't come through with that mindset.
No.
So why should I treat him with the same mindset? I have to then do something that's so different from me. But if I understand him, then I've learned something. So I've got myself better as a person, as a coach, or as a captain, because I've been willing to understand him. I've then filled my toolbox with another screwdriver, another hammer. That means I can use it differently. I can be a soft hammer. So
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a hard one that I hit him with. So it may be a soft, spongy one. So you look at it from a different view. You've suddenly gone, right, I can upskill myself that way. I learn from him. Now inside you may be burning because all you want to do is shout and swear and slap him across the chops and then go, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a reaction from them.
Yeah.
So that side was always the challenge. But I think in that part is just don't deem failure as losing or a defeat. You learn so much from having a bad day, and a defeat could be off the back of it, and it can be big financially. I understand that. That's why you can't have too many. So when you're going through the circles of the whole thing, you can't have too many bad failures, or you get moved on,
Yeah.
or you get dropped, or you get replaced. That's what happens in business. The exact same. If you keep losing things, or you lose repeated business, then it's different again.
Yeah, definitely. Amazing. So talk to me about, so a lot of CEOs that I speak to struggle with forming teams. So people leave organizations, new people come in, or they're setting up projects for specific pieces of work. And I thought about how this applies to rugby. When you're, for example, when you played for Scotland, you guys aren't playing together. You're not. It's not the same as when you're with Gloucester, because
Yeah.
you're together a lot. You're coming together, aren't you? You're coming together quickly for a specific tournament. How do you get people used to being together, come together, play together, align, have the same performance mindset to win in a short period of time? How would a CEO or an exec learn?
Yeah. Well, again, it eventually always comes back to your game plan.
Right.
So your structure, your framework of your company, of what you're trying to achieve, generally comes back to that. So if you're going out with, as I'll say, when the very first comments of me saying, I went in with a game, physically I looked this way, so Bryan's going to play like that. He physically looks like that, so he's going to play like that. she physically deals with that and emotionally like that. So we have to be aware of how she is in this part. So that's a physio I'm talking about now. So physio needs to understand that. So if you're looking at it from a business point of view, you're going, the key elements is your pitch, your game plan has to mirror what your product is.
Yeah.
So if I've got a big skinny team, there's no point in me playing a game that requires physicality.
No.
So if I've got a business that requires technology and it requires high-tech deliverance or it needs software attached to it, I then pick the product and then I pick the scheme that goes with it. I plan, and the way you develop it is you develop the individual. I can always get stronger. I can always get fitter. I can't get taller. I can't get that much faster. But I can get fitter. I can't improve this. I can improve this massively.
Yeah.
Whereas there's certain things I just cannot get bigger at or different. I can't change. I can't change this. This never stops learning. So when my mind's really active, I can always increase your mind. But if you try and put an extra 6 inches on my legs, lengthwise, that's not going to happen. I can put an extra 4 inches on them thigh-wise and have nice, big, strong thighs, but I can't run.
Yeah.
So there's no purpose to it.
Great analogy.
So what you got to do, you got to think about, pick the product, and then you can then set a game plan with that product, and you can say that game plan suits the product. No point in me selling a software company, selling something when I'm not providing people that understand software or understand the target we're in. So it's always comes back to it's not complicated. So and I think that's the key thing. Don't overcomplicate things. You say go out and pick your team. Like that's a team. What is that one? That one scrums. That one lifts. That one runs. That one passes. That one's keeps on running. Well, it's the old carrot in front of the donkey. It's a classic saying. You keep something in front of your employees. They will keep thriving for you because you're good at that, right? Be really good at that then. And all we try and do in sports sometimes is upskill people to be average at everything.
Yes.
Where you were excellent at 2 things and had 5 work-ons. Well, the work-ons will keep improving, but your work-ons will never be your strengths. They'll be good to improve them, but don't be just average. Be excellent at 2 or 3 things and keep the other things high percentage. International rugby was all about 85-90% of everything you could do all the time. It was never fluctuating between you were 100% today on that and then you were 50% yesterday. You couldn't play international rugby like that.
No.
As an individual, you would get dropped because you play against England one week and you'd be outstanding because of the emotion attached to it, because it's Scotland v England. But then you played against Italy and you were shite. So it was like, well, that's rubbish. Well, Bryan, you've got no consistency in what you do.
Yeah.
You need emotion to get you going. Well, look at it, the circumstances now when the sports people are back playing with no crowds and no excitement attached to it. You still should be able to perform because your job that's just training without a crowd. So if you've got any personal pride, you carry that training skills and mindset through in that personal pride time. So that's important,
Really is. But you've answered everything. That's everything that they need to know. You should be. What are you doing these days? Because are you not?
Well, you're gonna laugh because I've not laughed, but I've been approached by people over the last 6 months about sharing my journey with CEOs, MDs, going out and helping them, being a mentor coach for them. He said, you make a lot of money out of it. And then in that time, that was from probably November last year through to February this year, when I had a company in London that was wanting to use me in different ways. And because I've got a journey from different things that people understand. And then, so I left rugby, 2017, to work for a foreign exchange company in currency in London, a big company called Afex, trade about $24 billion a year, 21 offices around the world, big. They wanted to open a sporting sector. So anyway, I did. I just came through a time when I wanted to do something different. I did 23, 25 years of playing and emotionally giving a lot to it and not really sitting back and having weekends off or whatever. So anyway, that happened, and then my boss then fell out with the two owners in America, and he was the one that brought us in to do all this rugby sporting stuff within a big corporate company. But they just brought us in and literally go and do the sport, go and do it, and didn't really understand FX, didn't really know what we were selling. Going back to everything I've said, they were providing a huge background company, but no upskilling, no coaching, no leadership, no help, no nothing. Just go on there, Bryan, use your skills. And I'm like, my skills aren't picking up and doing 60 cold calls to companies that get pestered every day. Because the last thing they want to do, unless they know me, they don't want to talk to me. And they don't want to talk to me about FX. They want to talk to me about that game in Paris, that game in Murrayfield. They don't want to talk to me about, oh, how's your FX? You know what I mean? Who's does your currency stuff? So in that time, that went into 2018, and then Stuart left. They then virtually, I don't know what anything, get on the phones, Bryan, and I'm like, nah. So I then went back into coaching for a little bit. And then Stuart, the CEO of that company, who'd been there for 14 years, got back on the scene really. And in that time, I had left, done the 20s, got involved with friends of mine that were involved in an energy company, and I found investors for them to grow their energy company in the gas peaking plants, solar, anaerobic digestion plants and stuff. So I ended up just finding investors for them.
Right.
And then Stuart just recently, last August, Stuart, the CEO of that company, got back involved. He had to do 20 months gardening leave because of his influence in the sector. So in that time, he had to stay out of the business. But anyway, he got back involved with the company. He set up a company with this angel investor in August called Elite FX.
Right.
So in January, they started trading. And then he asked me back to get involved again as a director and be on the board in March, May, April time. I was like, oh, right, I can't have any more letdowns because I come out with this something that I've been good at and understood. To the first one to be let down, and the next one, there was some issues with the energy boys because one of the owners one of the directors had fallen out with the big investor. So that investor took 3 million out, and it was just like, so that I ended up being unemployed a little bit for about 3 months in the middle there, and I was just like, shit, I'm going to have to go back into coaching, which changes me mentally again, even though I enjoyed it. But during this whole 6 month period, a couple of people have asked me about would I be interested in self-coaching CEOs, MDs, and that's like twice a month, 3 times a month, once a week, phone call, drive to London, meet someone. Beautiful. And I'm like, of course I can.
Great.
But at that time, coronavirus kicked in.
Yeah. So
then that never went any further. And at that stage, I was thinking, I can't sit here for 6 months potentially and not earn anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, Stuart, we've come back in with the Elite FX and the currency stuff, and it's been a great 2 months really. We've been hammering it with players from all over Australia, New Zealand, Scotland, England, Ireland, traveling around Japan, and just we manage their currency when they're sending it back, and we're hedging quite a lot of their salary, so they're actually protecting some of it. Okay. So instead of spending all their savings, they're sending 30% of it home each year, but we are fixing them in a rate that's good at the time, and we're fixing that rate for the whole duration of their contract for 2 years. Yeah. So like for you sending money back to the UK, suddenly you're sending it back at a rate that you've agreed at, 187. I don't know what the Aussie GBP is today, but say 187, you're going, right, every time for 2 years, you send it back at that rate. So you don't get it. And if it goes above there, you can still send a spot trade, which is the same day trade. But at least that player knows that he's sending money home during his playing time.
Amazing.
So I've been doing that and looking to go into businesses with that, because obviously a lot of companies have exposure. So I've been doing that. So but the corporate stuff, people have asked me about it loads, and how we develop it or how I got there was always going to be the challenge.